Champaign County Agriculture Today with your host, Dennis Riggs.
Hello, I'm Dennis Riggs, and welcome to Champaign County Agriculture Today. We're so happy you tuned in today on our program. Today's program is a little bit different than the ones we've done in the past. We're going to talk about an aspect of agriculture that we may not see here in East Central Illinois, and actually in Illinois very often, and that's the animal aspect of agriculture. Very important part of agriculture. I don't care if farmers are growing grain or if they are just truly livestock producers. Livestock is still one of the largest consumers of the grains that we see growing here in East Central Illinois. Livestock are used for many purposes. They've been around for a long, long time. And today, we're going to take a look at how farmers care for their livestock, how veterinarians help the farmers care for their livestock, and that's why it's important to you as a consumer. And we have some great folks with us today that are going to talk about that. We've got the veterinary community here with Rebecca, and we have the farming community here with grandpa and grandson of the Woods family. Glad to have Andy and Don with us today. Let's start out with some introductions. And Rebecca, tell us about yourself, a little bit about your background, and what do you do in the animal world?
Okay. I'm Rebecca Kammer. I received my DVM in 2004 from the University of Illinois. And in 2006, I started my own practice here in Philo, Illinois. And basically, I'm a mobile service. I service everything from livestock to horses to small animals. And I'm by myself and own the practice and having a very good time in this area.
Now, tell me about your background. Is this something that was new to you, or did you grow up on a farm?
Yeah, I grew up on a farm. My parents still live in Melvin, Illinois. And my father's a grain farmer, also has some livestock, has about a 40-cow beef herd. So grew up around cattle, pretty comfortable around the big livestock, which is why I'm a mixed veterinarian. I like to do both the large and the small.
As I've always wanted to ask a veterinarian this question, what was your first pet? What was your first animal that you cared for?
That's a good question.
Do you have pets at home?
Yeah, we always had
farm?
Cats and dogs and that, but you know, the cattle were the first thing. I mean, we have pictures when we were teeny tiny having bottle calves and things like that. So calves in the basement trying to keep them warm. So that was I think the first time, you know, that kind of instilled that caring for animals, getting them through the winter and things like that. So
very good. I've always wanted to know where that started, how far back. It went way back then.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Well, speaking of going way back, our next person we're going to talk to is Don Wood. Don, you and I have known each other for a long time. You're a farmer here in Champaign County. Tell me about your background, where you're from, and what got you into raising livestock on your farm.
Well, I live north of Champaign, about 5 miles. I've always been around the farm as long as I can remember. Cattle has always been my love. It was my family's love, and I classify myself as a cattle feeder and a farmer. Mm-hmm. Sort of goes hand in hand. But I really don't get a big thrill out of watching a bean plant or a corn plant grow, but I like to watch that fat calf go up the load and chute. I know it's payday.
Goes a little bit quicker than watching the bean plant grow.
That's right.
Well, another crop that you've helped raise in this county is this gentleman right over here, Andy Allen. Andy, I understand that you guys are related. How does that work?
Don is my mother's father.
There you go.
And I'm the third oldest grandson. And at one point in time, I was born on the farm at his place. Uh-huh. And then right after high school, I came to work for him, and I'm still working for him.
Do you learn something every day when you're a youngin' on the farm? Is that good thing, bad thing? Tell me how do you learn as a third generation, in that generational?
There's not a day goes by that you ever stop learning. And I don't think in the industry you'll ever stop learning. There's a lot of knowledge to be taken in, but there's a lot of knowledge that's with me every day. You know, you got 70 years worth of experience that, I get to share every day. And you can't learn that in a book. So
And of course, there was more generations before that. I know,
Right,
Don,
yeah.
your dad was around for many years. Stan Wood was very active, and you remember Stan and learning things from him too.
Oh, I don't really remember him as far as learning anything. I remember him as my grandpa.
Yeah.
You know, but I've had, you know, livestock on both sides of my family. My father's side, they all raise purebred cattle, and so I've been around it my whole life.
Very
So,
good. Well, there's a topic that I wanted to touch, and so let's hop right into that one. You bring up purebred. Don, tell us a difference between a purebred livestock, maybe something that people that our listeners that are watching the show today have seen at county fairs and stuff, and then the difference between that and just regular livestock on the farm.
Well, in our operation, we feed cattle. We buy cattle and weighing in 550 to 600 pounds. We put about another 600 pounds on them, and most of our cattle goes, all of our cattle go to slaughter. All of our cattle go to for meat consumption. Our top end of the cattle, it probably goes to exports. We probably service a lot of restaurants, probably some grocery stores, but probably most of our cattle goes for exports or restaurants.
Okay. Well, growing cattle, growing any livestock, is a tough job, and they are a living organism, just like a plant, just like we are. Rebecca, tell me about what a farmer has. What do you see when you go out to a farm? When they call you, it's like calling the doctor. They
yeah.
need some help. What do you usually see? How do you approach a call for help?
Well, yeah, there's kind of two different reasons to be called out. A lot of farmers do what we call preventative medicine, which is just like you or I going to the doctor for our yearly checkup. If they have a large operation like Don's, a lot of times it's what we call herd health, and they just want the veterinarian to come out, kind of check through the pens. Do you see any problems? Do you see places we could improve things? Do you see animals that need help? The other thing would be, like we said, preventative medicine, where you or I would go to the doctor. Maybe we need some vaccines, maybe, to prevent disease. So those would be kind of before the emergency happens. And then there are the calls that, hey, something is sick, or there's a whole bunch of them that are sick. We've got a problem that we can't head off ourselves. We need some ideas. We need some, antibiotics. We need some treatments that we don't have ourselves to try to head off what's going on. So, and just, some extra expertise. Is it something we aren't even thinking of? So that's the main thing is we're past our capabilities. We're calling in the professional. What can you help? How can you help us get this animal better and being productive?
Mm-hmm. Let's talk about, you talked about going out to the pen, going out to the livestock farm. We've got some pictures we want to share with our viewers today. And we're going to go to picture number one because you specifically said something about pens. And Rebecca, I'm going to have you talk about this because we're in a hog operation. These guys know the cattle a little bit better. We have a pen here. We have a mama hog, and she's got a lot of little ones there. Interesting pen. Why is it designed that way?
Yeah, what we're looking at is a farrowing crate. Looks kind of pretty general farrowing crate in the industry. And basically the mother pig goes into the crate before she has the piglets, and then we'll actually deliver the piglets in that pen. And the upright portion is where the sow or the mother pig stands while she's in there. And then the piglets can get out away from her. And basically the crate is for the protection of the piglets. So when she lays down, she doesn't lay on them. They can get away from her. They usually have, if it's during cold season, they have heat lamps on the outside. So the piglets can get away and not be crushed or laid on.
So actually the pen is for the protection of the little ones as well as for the mother. Keeps things, they're all together, but it keeps them a little bit separated so that there's no damage. Because as we know, or those that have in livestock business, sometimes the mother doesn't exactly know where all the little ones, and they can be crushed. Is that right?
Right. Oh yeah. You're talking, a sow could have anywhere from, 10, 12, just a bunch of little pigs running around. And when she lays down, you're talking about 350, 100, pound animal laying down, and those piglets are just a couple 5 pounds. and they don't have much hope if they don't have a place to get away and be protected.
Now, how long would they stay in a farrowing situation like that before they can be in a more open pen?
The sows, I believe they stay in there anywhere from 2 to 3 weeks. I believe the piglets are weaned at 3 weeks. So you're talking, she might be in there a month or so before she has them, and then continuing into raising the piglets. So, it does restrict her movement, but it's for the protection of the piglets and to make sure everybody's healthy and makes it through that nursing time. So
we're going to go down to picture number 2. We've seen some of the inside stuff. Let's go to a little bit of the outside stuff. We're talking about hogs still, and this is an outside feeding situation. Kind of tell us what's going on here.
Looks like we've got a long bunk. Looks like water.
They're on the left, And so this is like an open range,
yeah.
Because not all hogs are inside all the time.
Right.
There's
yeah.
also the outside.
We have what we call confinement raised hogs, and then we have the outdoor raised hogs. So not as common to be raised outdoors anymore. But the other side, the right side picture, is a waterer in a confinement-based operation where the pig can come and triggers a button or some type of snap or something to release the water and get water that way. So,
are animals ever restricted on the amount of feed or water that they can consume?
Water, you never want to restrict an animal from having, especially hot times like right now during the summer. Since your body, my body, a cow's body is 75% water. They need to constantly replenish that supply. So, even in the winter, we need to worry about water freezes very readily. When we have big stock tanks like that, you need to keep either a heater or a fresh supply of water all the time. In the feeding, people have different ways of feeding. Cows, sheep, things like that are what we call fermenters. They ferment their feed. It's better to have a constant supply of some type of forage or feed going through their system to keep that fermentation process healthy. So water is the most important. They can't go without water for more than a day or two, depending on the conditions outside.
Yep. Okay, let's go over to the cattle side of thing. I'm going to bring up slide number 3, and let's talk. Let's go back to the Woodses here, and our first shot is some cattle on the outside. And Andy, why don't you take a look at there? And we've got some cows. Looks like having a pretty good time. They're out by the watering hole there. Or tell us what they're doing.
Well, that's more of a feed bunk than a watering.
Oh, is it? Okay. Whoops. I couldn't see it from my angle.
No, I think they're just waiting for some, some grain. It looks like they've been running out on grass and some supplemented with some grain. And I think it's getting ready to be, ready to feed.
So, Don, I know in your operation there's feedlots and then there's open pasture. The picture we just saw had up there was more of an open pasture. Compare that with the feedlot. Tell me what goes on at your place.
Well, our lots are all fence line bunks, and we have a feed wagon that we feed every morning, and we feed somewhere around 40,000 pounds in a normal day. A feed. We have waters in the pens. We have about 5 or 6 lots, and so we happen to feed grain once a day. Most lots don't. Most lots feed 2 or 3 times a day, but we feed once a day. It works well for us because we have to run our bunks every morning to keep so little. You don't want hardly any left in the mornings, but you don't want to have a lot left, so you vary your rations.
I'm going to ask a question there. Back in Cub Scouts, a bunk is where you slept. Now, in your situation, a bunk is different, right?
A bunk in cattle is where they eat. It's like a smorgasbord,
Okay, all right.
It's full, and you can get up to the trough.
Just wanted to make sure they weren't sleeping. You don't want your cattle sleeping in your bunks.
Well, no, but it's funny. Cattle are pretty all animals are creatures of habit, and our cattle eat in about the same place every day. They eat the same time every day. Our most consumption is at night when it's cool, especially this time of year. and even in the wintertime, it's and about the same order.
I guess this is a question I've never explored too much, and you can answer this for me, Don. 2 o'clock in the morning, I drive by your farm and take a look at the cattle. Are they all asleep out there, or what are they doing? Or does day and night affect their sleeping habits?
You know, I don't know. I've been around cattle.
You don't go out there at 2 o'clock in the morning.
No, I've been around cattle all my life, and I haven't seen a lot of them sleep.
Uh-huh.
Now I'm sure they rest, and sometimes you'll find one and you think, my gosh, you know, this calf's got a problem. He's all stretched out. But you holler at him, he hops right up.
Uh-huh.
If their ears move, they're alive.
Okay, that's a good way to look at it. Well, let's turn to our veterinarian and ask that same question. How much sleep do cattle need? I mean, I'm like Don. I see them standing around out there in the pasture a lot. When do they go to bed? Do they have a curfew?
I don't think they see day and night as night's time to sleep and day's time to be awake. I think Don's right, you know, that they are more comfortable at night, so they do, if they have access to feed, that's when they eat and when they're comfortable. You know, I always say, you know, if I see a cow that's laying down, has her eyes shut, and is just chewing her cud, you know, chewing that roughage, that's a happy cow. That's a cow that's being productive. That's, you know, that's what you want to see a cow do. You don't want to see a cow up, moving around, can't get comfortable, lays down, gets up, things like that. There's something going on with that cow. So the best cow is the cow that's laying down, chewing her cud with, you know, just taking a rest. So she's comfortable and she's being very productive. So
We're going to go to another slide now. I'm going to ask Andy this question. Andy, you correct me on my watering trough on the last slide. Let's look at slide number 4 here. And we've got a cow, and as we pointed out, it's on pasture. I know in your folks' operation there, you do a lot of feedlot where there's not actually grass. How does the cow get? We all think cattle eat grass. This cow seems to be out there in the grass. Tell me the difference between pasture and feedlot as far as the cow. And this was out in the pasture.
Well, typically out in the pasture, you don't have the feed source that, you know, we feed a lot of grain.
Mm-hmm.
We do supplement hay at free choice. They stay a lot cleaner. They stay a lot fresher. I think that, you know, their performance is excellent on pasture. We get, you know, excellent performance in the feedlot too.
Mm-hmm.
The cattle might stay a little fresher out on pasture just because they are more comfortable. You know, when you lay down at night, you would rather lay on, you know, green grass than concrete.
Uh-huh.
But
It's a whole different mechanism of raising cattle. It's more of the lifestyle type or that type of thing.
Most of the cattle, you know, that are in the pasture, it's a different, you know, type of operation than a feedlot.
Mm-hmm.
It's more of a cow-calf operation, and that's, you know, feedlots you're either going to find in a confinement barn or in an open, you know, feedlot.
Mm-hmm. Let's talk about animal health. Don, when you see cattle out on your farm and sniffles, what do you look for to make sure that those animals are healthy and doing well out there?
Well, you don't worry a lot about, you know, some people think, yeah, they got a little runny nose, they got a problem. I don't worry about them. Dry nose, cattle that when they get up, they don't stretch, they don't feel good. Cattle that is off by themselves, most cattle want to be around other cattle. And a sick calf will probably always go off by himself. Very seldom will a sick calf be in the lot. He'll go in the barn. And there's just a lot of things that you experience over the years tells you whether this calf is sick and that calf is not sick.
Why do farmers want to have healthy animals? Is it, I mean, you don't feel their pain, I guess you would say.
Well, you know, you like to be healthy.
Yeah.
And so healthy animals do better. They gain more. They're more efficient on their feed. And
as far as the preventive side, can you do much on the preventive side to keep the animals healthy?
You know, we've done a lot of changing over the years. Probably we're buying more and more predation pre-conditioned cattle. I got it out.
There you go.
Most of our cattle right now is coming out of Kentucky. Most of them has all been weaned. They've had 1 to 2 rounds of shots. Some of them has come off the grass a little bit. And so most of these cattle are getting up on feed in 1.5 to 2 weeks, maybe a week even, where the cattle that you buy, that we were buying around here, that come out of sale barns or what have you, not weaned when they were brought into the barns. Some of them cattle take 2 to 3 weeks to get up on feed, and we've ended a lot of problems with the preconditioned cattle, and that's going that way, and there's going to be more of it. You have to pay a little more for it. It's a little less work for you to start, and you know, we sort of go on the assumption that every calf on the place is going to get sick the first week. It don't, you know, but you have to go on that way because you don't want a train wreck.
You watch them a little bit closer?
Oh, yes. Yes. And when we keep everything, we have a starting barn, and we have different stages in our operation. We do a lot of sorting, and you know, you do a lot of change. If you don't change, you don't make it. We do a lot of change in rations. Last year when corn was up in the $6-7 range, if you hadn't changed, you wouldn't be in business.
Now, when you say rations, you're talking about percentages of different materials that make up the feed? Is that what that is?
That's right. We feed corn silage. We feed the silage that we've cut. We feed the silage that we've gotten from seed companies, which is mostly stalks and off corn and what have you like that. It's not whole plant silage. We feed a lot of corn screenings, a lot of shell corn. Our diet is probably less straight shell corn than what it used to be, and we feed a lot of corn gluten.
That's why I wanted to hit. I know in your operation, you guys have experimented around using a product that actually comes from, is it Archer Daniels Midland?
Well, wherever we can get it. There's a lot of places to get it.
And what is that stuff?
That is, well, we started out feeding the gluten from making corn sweetener out of ADM in Decatur. We started in 1972 when they'd come out of the side of a building with a 16-inch auger and dropped it in your truck, and you didn't even know what you was getting. But we feed gluten now from Pekin Energy. We get some out of Chicago, CIP. We get some Lafayette, which is Tate & Lyle. They also have a plant in Decatur. We get some out of, we got some loads in yesterday out of Indianapolis. So.
But we're really talking about kind of a mesh. Is it a goo?
It's a mash of the corn industry. It's a byproduct of the corn industry and the ethanol industry, and a lot of other things too. So
a lot of people say that when corn is made for alcohol, that all the food value of that is gone. But you're saying that that's a byproduct that then's used in livestock feed. Is that correct?
On a dry matter basis, it'll run around 20% protein, and it's a good feed. It's the base of our operation.
So basically, you're getting food and fuel from the same bushel of corn.
Right.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Most
Andy?
of our rations are running about anywhere from 62 to 73% byproduct.
And the cattle, what do they think of it?
They love it.
They think it's pretty good stuff, huh?
You know, it's another way of us to keep the dust down on our feeds. It is a wetter product than feeding just regular corn, and you know, we do feed a lot of corn screenings. So in corn screenings, you got a lot of dust.
Corn screenings, let's define that just a little bit for our viewers.
Corn screenings is the cracked, and you know, whenever you transfer corn, it always has fine, you know,
little pieces,
little finings to it, and that is an off-fall from the elevators. And then we purchase that, and it's still, you know, you get a lot of hearts of the corn, a lot of food value out of the corn, and so we feed quite a bit of that.
Rebecca, let's talk about this concept. We are what we eat. We humans talk about that quite a bit. Don and Andy have talked about different feeds for their livestock. Is that the same for livestock? Is their diet very important?
I would say, luckily with cows are really amazing creatures. They can take, what we've said, byproducts, things that have no other use really, stalks of corn, not the corn themselves, but the plant material. I mean, you're talking about basically cellulose, which takes a lot to break down, and those cows can take all of that, which has no use otherwise, and their stomach can break it down and turn it into all these nutrients that they can use. There's not many other animals that do that, besides cows, sheep. Horses can do a tiny bit like that, but they can take things that have no other purpose, break them down, and they can flourish off of, just kind of what we call junk food, which is, not to say, people say like goats and that you can feed them trash, and, you don't want to feed them trash, but this isn't rotten feed. It's spoiled feed, but they're excellent, exchangers, or, they can turn kind of trash into, nutrients and flourish and be very productive off these kinds of feeds. So they're really, amazing creatures to be able to do all that. So
Animal agriculture is so cool. We don't think about that often. A lot of, especially our non-farm audiences watching us today, maybe don't get as close to contact. You really can't raise a cow in your backyard in town. You might be able to raise a garden and grow crops and relate to a crop production farmer. Don, where's the future hold? In just a little bit we've got left here, is there still a good future for animal agriculture?
Well, I think so, but of course I'm in that business, so maybe I'm looking at it not the way everybody else looks at it. You always heard that a pig would eat anything. Pig could lay in mud, but that's not true. A pig cannot use the byproducts that we feed. And actually a pig is a lot cleaner animal than you think he is. I think that livestock agriculture, I think may improve, but it's going to big operations.
There's a lot of changes. I know you've seen over your lifetime.
I've seen changes. It's unreal.
Well, a change that we're having is we're about out of time. So I want to thank you all for coming in and talking about agriculture from the agricultural standpoint and how farmers make a special effort to take good care of their production. Thank you very much. That's our time for today. We'd like to thank you for listening. Hope you'll tune in again next time when we talk more about Champaign County agriculture today. I'm Dennis Riggs.
Champaign County Agriculture Today is brought to you by Champaign County Farm Bureau.